moving on to our next keynote of the day. So in today's fast-paced world, it is easy for everyone to get lost, confused, and vulnerable. The best way an organization can support an employee is through empathy, making them feel you are with them through thick and thin. So get ready to be a part of a session that will inspire everyone to look beyond the surface of our career and discover the deeper significance of what we actually do. By helping people find meaning in their work, this leader paves the way for an engaged, motivated, and fulfilled professional journey. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the UAE's top business coach and author. Let's put our hands together for Dr. Corrie Block. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for inviting me. You know what would be really great is, as we're talking about employee engagement and employee well-being, is if I could just have an app for that. If I could just, at 9 dirhams a month per employee, say there's a guaranteed way to increase employee well-being and employee engagement. And then I could just sell you that app. But I looked for it and it wasn't there, I couldn't find it. Actually, I don't really have any technology for you at all. I don't have any chatbots, I don't have any artificial intelligence. I actually don't even have any slides. So what I want to share with you really is just the result of a conversation we're about to have. I'm going to share with you my 3 biggest tips. 30 years in the industry, 30 years in strategy and restructuring and executive coaching and leadership development and authoring books. And this is what I've learned, actually. None of our tech is really working to find that sweet spot. And the reason is that the sweet spot in our employees for discretionary effort, for extra development, for extra margin is actually a very, very old set of tools. I know that you're all in HR, so every one of you woke up this morning thinking, I'm so excited about filling out new recruitment forms, writing job descriptions, building employee handbooks, right? Yeah, nobody wakes up excited about employee handbooks. No, that's part of the job, but that's not why you're there. And so one of the most incredible things that we can do to help our employees, which in turn will help us make more money, is help them to connect with their meaning for being there. And the meaning that they have at work isn't in the job that they do, it's in the reasons why they do it. And the reasons for doing it, almost 100% of the time, have nothing to do with the business. They've got a career trajectory. They have aspirations that they're looking at. They're having personal goals for their personal lives. They want to put their kids through the universities of their choice. They want good food on the plate, gas in the car, a vacation at a reasonable time, and retirement at a reasonable age. That is why they're actually there. And one of the most powerful things that you can do as HR leaders is to teach your managers to help them find that meaning. You know, in BetterUp, they did a study and found out at 2,500 employees, they found out that employees will work for 23% less if they're working in a job that they find meaningful. Those employees will also take 2 less leave days every year and work an extra hour a week of discretionary effort, which adds up to an extra week's worth of work every year. You want your margin? That's where it is. Even though those employees are willing to work for 23% less, we actually pay them more. Do you know why? Because they're more engaged. They're more engaged, they develop themselves, they're connected better in the organization, and so they perform better, not surprisingly. Even though they're willing to work for less, and I don't think you should pay them less, you'll actually pay them more. They perform better. That's meaning. But it's not in the job description. It's not in the what of what they're doing. It's in the why of why they're doing it. And that's, so for me, after thousands of employees, I actually do this as a training program. Not really a training program. It's more of a series of conversations, much like this one. And I take employees, their leaders, all the way from the board of directors right on down to supervisors through the process of writing in 2 days their personal vision, mission, values, and goals for their personal lives. And you know what the impact on the organization is? Profit. Because if they know the reason for being there, and it's clearly written down in front of them, they understand why they're here and why they're here, why they chose this place instead of any other place for them to dedicate half of their life every day. That's their reason for being there. It's so powerful that in one organization, large multinational organization, 70-year-old company, 50,000 employees, I took their 55 most difficult senior executives through this program in 2 days, raised their employee engagement score by 13%. That changed everything for the organization. And no, there's no app for that. We're playing by old rules. What is meaning? In the psychology, we describe meaning as a set of two things. One is purpose and the other is significance. We need to do, and we need what we do to matter. Not to you, to them. That's the easiest thing that you can do. Make what they do matter. I know you've got this career aspiration. I know you want that raise. I know you want this. I know you're looking out for your family right now. That is why they're actually there. That's the meaning of work. And the secret to knowing that is knowing that the majority of the meaning is actually outside of the office. You just have to ask why they're actually there. That's one. Oh, you know what? It's interesting, actually. The benefits to the organization are huge, by the way, which I'll tell you in a minute. But the research shows that not only will employees be happier if they understand the meaning behind their work and they connect to it, but they will be healthier, and statistically speaking, scientifically speaking, they will live longer lives. Yes, you can lengthen the lives of your employees by helping them to find meaning at work. It's pretty amazing. Secondly, connection. We are social creatures. We are a social species. And we survived the last 10,000 generations of adaptation and survival on this planet by knowing who to trust, who to connect with. It's interesting because I was raised in a really loving household. My parents loved me. My mom told me she loved me every day. My dad told me he loved me every day, and they loved me so much it was embarrassing. And I would tell them to stop. My dad was like, "Oh, I love you, son. I love you." Come on, Dad. That's too much. Right? I'm 49 years old now. Just give it a break. But he loved me. My parents told us we had to love our siblings and love our friends and our neighbors. And I went to church every Sunday where the pastor would tell us to love our neighbors as ourselves and love one another. And that was how I grew up. Turns out, though, it was all a lie. What they didn't tell me is that I was going to grow up, become an adult, and I was going to have to get a job. And in my job, I was not supposed to love the people that I was working with. So now I'm spending half of my life every day in this organization where I'm not supposed to love those people. And if by some horrible twist of fate I do end up loving the people that I'm working with, I definitely should not tell them. Because that's deeply, deeply unprofessional. So there I was, 20 years in corporate life, entrepreneurship, strategy, professor. Secretly loving people and never telling them. Until one day, about 6 years ago, oh God, I can still feel my heart drop out of my chest. I was in Dubai and I was talking to the CEO of a company, $600 million turnover company, and we were talking about the strategy for his leadership, and I was telling him about this, and we were talking about these specific VPs and how much this was going to hurt them and how we were going to mitigate that damage and how much we cared about them, and I was talking to him, and we were talking about 45 minutes, and I said, okay, we've got a plan. And then without thinking, I said, good talk. See you on Monday. I love you. And I had a heart attack right there, and I was like, oh no. Did I just tell the CEO of a $600 million company that I love him, and I'm reaching down for the red button on my phone as fast as I can possibly to click it off, and that's when I heard it. I heard it. It was small. It was faint. It was through the tiny little speaker as I was lowering my phone, but it was undeniable. He said, excellent work, Corrie. See you Monday. Love you too. We never spoke of it again. You know, I read a dozen books a year on empathy and leadership, on shared values, on belonging, but I don't read a single book on the highest form of any of those things. Where is Amy Edmondson's book on the highest form of psychological safety? Where is Simon Sinek's book on the highest form of empathy in leadership? Where is the book on the highest form of trust and respect and belonging and shared values and critical feedback and forgiveness? Where is the book on love? We have a shortcut for this, and the shortcut is 1,000,000 years old. Each and every one of you is the product of 10,000 successful generations of people who knew who loved them and knew who didn't. And they knew who they loved and they knew who they didn't love. And love was a shortcut for all of those things. Shared resources, belonging, protection. I will provide for you. I'll look out for your family. I've got your back. But we don't talk about that at work. Why? Why don't we talk about that at work? And it's that connection. It's that connection. Now, I bet every one of you can think of a person that you've worked with in your past that you would say, yeah, I love that person and I never told them, and that's okay. That's okay, just think of that. Just think of that. It's that kind of connection that drives this profitability. You know, Gallup did a study in 2019. They found out that those employees who are better engaged in their jobs, those companies with those employees that are better engaged, not only are those employees willing to work for less, and the companies actually pay them more, but there's 41% less absenteeism, 59% less turnover, there's 17% higher performing, they're 21% more profitable, and this is 50,000 business units, 1.4 million employee records, and do you know that 70% of the variance on all of those benefits in employee well-being and employee engagement come down to a single connection? Do you know what it is? It's the manager. All of that discretionary effort, all of those benefits, translating into about $9,500 US per employee per year, by the way, if you want to do the math, come down to how well connected an employee feels when they're talking to their line manager. That's connection. There's no app for that. And the third one is fulfillment. You know, I've done a lot in my life. If you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, you should connect with me on LinkedIn. And even if you don't want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you should stalk me on LinkedIn. Because the question I get asked most often when people look at my LinkedIn profile isn't, why did you do all of that? It's how. How did you do all of that? A lot of it was really hard. You know, starting companies, writing books, doing postgraduate degrees. I've got 4 postgraduate degrees. I've published 7 books. I've raised 5 kids. And I'll tell you what, the things that I've done in my life that have meant the most, that have been the most impactful, most insightful, most rewarding experiences of my life did not make me happy when I was doing them. When it's just you and the books at 2 o'clock in the morning and nobody is behind you. When it's just you writing again and there's nobody standing over your shoulder saying, good job, Corrie. When your employees are motivating themselves to get things done and the things that they're doing are difficult, that is what's going to be fulfilling. I think, and I really hate to have to say this in the UAE because we've done such a good job with happiness, but I think happiness might be a distraction from fulfillment. Most of the really big things that I've done in my life, publishing books, building companies, raising kids, it was about 15% pure joy. And the other 85% really, really hard work. And it's the hard work that makes it most fulfilling. It's the climb that makes the mountaintop fulfilling. It's the writing, it's the disciplining yourself that makes the publishing so fulfilling. It's the fight to get to the top that makes the top so fulfilling. It's the difficult part. And so I know that it's a little bit counterintuitive from an employee well-being standpoint, but if you really want to see the best in your employees, make it hard. Don't make it so hard that it's distracting, but make it hard enough that it's challenging. And I don't just mean raising the KPIs, I mean really challenging. Each and every one of them, yourselves included, each and every one of them is an apex predator. Each and every one of them is the product of 1,000,000 years of successful survival and adaptation. Every single generation of their ancestors made it work, whatever the world threw at them. They've got this, and they're capable of so much more than what we ask of them. And I don't just mean raise the KPI, I mean stand next to them and say, you know what, we should invent a new way to do this. That's how Elon Musk talks to his team when he wants them to land a spacecraft that is usually thrown in the garbage. He says, we're just going to solve this problem, and you guys are the ones to solve it, and I'll pay for as much as it costs until it's done, but I believe you are the people that can solve this particular problem. Make it hard. I have a terrible fear of heights. It's emasculating, actually. It's really embarrassing. I don't even hang pictures in my own home because anything over like 2 meters, and I'm shaking, I'm sweating. I'm like on this ladder one time, and I'm just shaking like this. My wife, God bless her, she comes up behind me. She's like, Corey, just come down. I'll do it. And I'm like, oh, fine. So I climb down, and I'm brushing sweat off my head, and she climbs up there, and she nails in this picture, and she hangs the pictures in my house because I'm just absolutely terrified of heights. So I decided to cure my fear of heights by learning to skydive. I started in October of last year. I've now completed 60 jumps. I've done my USPA B solo skydiving license. I've done 60 jumps all by myself, and I've rewired my brain because it was hard. I wanted to do something that was hard, and I think it's important for us as apex predators, as the most clever, most dangerous, most intelligent animals on the planet. I think it's important for us to do things that are hard because they're hard, and because doing hard things makes us stronger and is the only path to fulfillment. Nothing that's really easy is ever going to be fulfilling. You want to be happy? Eat a Big Mac. Watch Netflix. That'll make you happy. You want to be fulfilled? It's time to get to work. Thank you so much. I have a few minutes for Q&A. Does anybody want to talk about any of these things? Meaning, connection, and fulfillment. Or actually anything with regards to people. Yeah, go ahead. You need a microphone.
The best thing I can tell you now, I love you, man.
Thanks, man. I love you too. Yeah, hey, you know what's really cool? What's your name?
Ahmed.
Ahmed, my pleasure. Love you.
I thought this is the only thing I can do to express my gratitude for your session.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
If love is the price, I'll pay it, so no problem. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, here's something I'm going to challenge you all with. About a year and a half ago, I was doing research for my book, Love at Work. Love at Work, by the way, I don't care if you buy it or not, you should think about this. So I'm not here to sell my book, okay? My book became Amazon Global's #1 bestseller in management as soon as it was launched. It's actually got amazing reception, so that's great. I'm glad about that. When I was doing the research for the book, I decided I just wanted the world to be a little bit more loving and our professional environments to be a little bit more loving. And so on one day, I made an arbitrary decision to sign all of my emails, Love Corrie, to everyone, members of the royal families, clients, strangers, PR companies, everybody that I've ever written to here at Q&A or at ATD, I've signed my emails, Love Corrie, everyone.
Hi.
Not one complaint from any HR departments. Nobody seems to mind. I deal with ADNOC, Love Corrie, right? Nobody's complaining about me. So if I can do it, maybe you can do it. No more warm wishes or sincerely or, What do you think would happen if you started? What do you think would happen if all of us started doing it? And then what do you think would happen if maybe 1 million of us started or 10 million? 10 million would be great. If 10 million people just started always signing their emails, Love Corrie or Love Jordan or Love Asif, What do you think might happen? Questions? Who else?
There was a response saying misunderstanding.
Sorry, where are you? Hi. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question to you. Probably I'm going to, a little bit of difference from my other colleague who was talking about loving you. I'm going to do that at the last. But the question here is, you were talking about the strategies of engagement.
Yep.
I have a typical scenario where I want to love to listen to your thoughts. People are engaged, but unfortunately, they are negatively engaged in an organization.
Okay.
So there's a lot of engagement, but it's not a positive stoke. What would be your response? How to convert this negative engagement into a positive engagement?
Yeah, sure. First of all, that's a huge problem. Okay? When you have people that are negatively engaged, they could be passively or actively disengaged. If they're passively disengaged, then you're only losing their money. If they're actively disengaged, then they're actually stealing resources from the organization and from their economic tribe that could be put to better use, and they're using it for themselves. Keep in mind that all humans are selfish. It's a best practice for survival, okay? Your ancestors survived the world of scarcity and violence by being selfish, but we also learned that the best form of selfishness is together. They weren't selfish by themselves, they were selfish on teams. Families, tribes, cities, nations, empires, religions, now businesses. Businesses started in the Industrial Revolution so that anybody from anywhere could join an economic tribe and belong. Now, that's where we need to start from. If they're actively disengaged, it's because they lack psychological safety, and they lack that sense of belonging. That sense of belonging has to come from their line manager, and the line manager has to be able to connect with them. There's two tips I'm going to give you for this. One is the progression. Okay? The progression starts at the bottom floor with inclusion. I know that there's so much work on diversity, equity, and inclusion these days. That, for me, is level 1. That is the basement. You are welcome. You are included. Just because you're included doesn't mean you're heard, right? So that's level 2. You speak. Somebody acknowledges that you spoke, you're heard. But that doesn't mean you've been understood. That's level 3. Level 3 is when you hear an echo back that kind of resembles what you've said, but just because you've been understood doesn't mean that you're valued, right? If I give you advice, you can understand the advice, but if you don't take the advice, it's not valuable advice. So they're not valued yet. Valued is when what they say or what they contribute actually changes the organization. The echo is in form of change. And if that happens reciprocally over time, they actually feel loved. That is the progression from included, heard, understood, valued, and loved. That's it. So start there. Help them to feel understood. The easiest way to do that is active listening. And I'm not going to give you 6 stages of active listening. There's only one stage. It's a closed mouth. Okay? After that, care and concern. If you care about them and you're curious, care and curiosity, if you care about them and you're curious about what they're saying, then that's it. That's all you need. But if their line manager doesn't care and isn't curious, you will not get the discretionary effort that you're looking for, and the passive disengagement, maybe active disengagement, will continue. It's the manager.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Change all the managers?
No. Okay, so can we not change all the managers? That's a good question. Look, I've been doing leadership training for more than 30 years now. I've worked with the highest level of executives from World Bank to Microsoft to United Nations. I've worked with leaders from all these kinds of organizations. Every single one of them is human, which means each and every one of those leaders also plays by the old set of rules. The old set of rules is humans are not resources, and humans are not capital. Humans are humans. They need to belong. They need to feel like they're going to be provided for and protected by a member of their tribe, and especially the chief of their tribe. If they don't feel belonging, provision, protection, no, they're not going to work very well. So you need managers that are educated in how to help them to feel connected. It's really like that. There is no app for this. There is no artificial intelligence for this. There's not a subscription you can sign up to. Each and every one of you and your managers and your CXOs are the product of 1,000,000 years of successful survival and adaptation. Every one of them knows how to do it. They just haven't been told that it's okay. And they haven't been told that it's a requirement of their job to connect with their team emotionally. They're humans, not resources. We are messy creatures. And if we continue to treat humans as capital, we're going to be continually disappointed by their lack of behavior. Humans don't behave like capital. I know capital really well. Humans don't behave like that at all. So yeah, it is the managers. And yeah, those managers, remember, each and every one of them, their engagement, it comes down to their relationship with their line manager, whose engagement comes down to their relationship with their line manager, whose engagement comes down to their relationship with their executive sponsor, who comes down to their relationship with that CEO. It starts at the top. There is no such thing as a grassroots movement in a private organization. All of the research backs that up. Okay? You want change, you want real culture change, you start at the top. That's how you get the discretionary effort, is by getting your CEO and the executive committee to start modeling this. There's no app for that. I'm so sorry. I hate to be a disappointment. I really wish I could have brought you something that was like simple, but instead it's going to have to be meaningful. Instead, it's going to have to force you into relationship, into connection. Instead, it's going to have to force you to be what made you the very best. Your ancestors earned you the right to be born by knowing how to belong and how to make others feel belonged. Your ancestors earned you the right to be born by knowing who to trust, who they respected, and who they were sharing resources with, and you have that in you as well. I want us to get back to what makes us human, because I think I know for a fact, and I've documented the research, that is the quickest, most powerful way to profitability. Thank you.